Discussions in this show are for entertainment and educational purposes only and should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and neither SmartPro Financial nor Bridgeway Wealth are affiliated. Hey, welcome back to the Working Wealth Podcast. We are here with part 2 of our conversation with Tim Gajda, our local Five Forks Good Neighbor insurance agent. If you missed part 1 or if you haven't watched that yet, press pause right now. Do not pass go. Do not collect your $200. Go back and watch part 1. We talked about some great information about just property and casualty insurance in general, as well as auto coverages, how to handle that kind of stuff, how to think about it. Also, if you haven't done it yet, do us a favor and like and share these posts and these podcast episodes. We'd love to get this out, be a helpful resource for everybody here. If you're ready to go, though, you watched episode 1 or part 1, let's roll with part 2. We'll see you at the end. So let's talk about other aspects of coverage on the home. So you have like the dwelling coverage, which is the replacement cost for your property.
Yep.
You have other structures, which like most policies I see, that's like coverage A is your dwelling, coverage B is your other structures.
Yeah, it's called other structures, like detached structures, right? So you've got.
I want to break that down very specifically because a lot of times people get confused and they think, well, I have this shed in my backyard, or I have this fence, or I have this deck. Like, what determines specifically for those common items if something is dwelling versus other structures?
Sure. So dwelling is everything. If you were to take, so I usually do this from a personal property standpoint. So if you were to take your house, all of the connected pieces, right? So connected being like breezeways, patios, things like that. Like it has to, if you could lift it up in one piece and you were to dump it out, right?
Yeah.
Everything that falls on the ground is personal property.
Okay.
Everything that's in your hand is dwelling, is your structure.
Okay.
Right? So
if it's connected to the actual like
connected
domicile,
to
the house.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's why like a fence is considered a detached structure.
Gotcha.
A garage, like you have a detached garage.
Yep.
There is a different coverage on that. That's going to fall into that other structures.
Okay. So the fence will be other structures. The separate building will be other structures.
And
unless there's an exclusion for like an aluminum shed you bought at Lowe's.
So that's what I was just going to touch on, right?
Yeah.
So most sheds, so the two different classifications of on sheds.
Okay.
So if the shed has an actual foundation, like concrete foundation, like a detached garage, you also have a shed like that as well.
Yeah.
That is considered an other structure.
Interesting.
If it is just, hey, I went to Lowe's and I bought a big plastic shed and screwed a thing together and it holds all my gardening equipment, that is considered personal property based on the foundation. So if you have a foundation on it, then it's considered other structures. If it does not have a foundation, it's considered personal property.
So if I were to take that example you said about like pick up the house, shake everything out.
Yep.
So in terms of all the actual property or assets I have that could be covered, if I were to pick up and move, anything that stays is going to be dwelling or other structures. If it's something that could easily move with me, like that shed that's
personal
not
property.
on a concrete foundation, that's going to be personal property.
If it's not, I mean, that just goes back to you shake everything out, right?
Yeah.
And that's stuff that you're taking with you.
Good to know.
So that's all considered. Yeah. So that's the good way to put it. Yeah.
So what are the typical coverage criteria for like other structures or that like the detached structures? Like I know what I've typically seen is coverage A is X amount.
Yeah,
other structures are
everything
like 20%
usually is based
of
a percentage, right? So everything's usually based. A lot of companies do like 10% of that value. So if you have a higher value detached structure, then you talk to your agent and make sure that you boost that up, right? Because it's otherwise everything is kind of boilerplate. When you get the replacement cost value, everything is going to boilerplate from there. So it might be, 10 to 15% of other structures. It might be for personal property, it might be anywhere between 25 and 35% of the value of your home. Personal property is more like 65 to 80% of the value of your home.
Okay.
Loss of use which is if you're forced from your home due to a claim, and they're going to give you a reasonable place to stay until you're ready to go back in. It's usually somewhere between 20 and 30 to 40% of the value of coverage A over a 24-month period.
Over 24 months. So like the value spread out over 2 years.
Again, it's
roughly.
Based upon company, so usually 12 to 24 months.
Yeah, we're not making like black and white standards here. We're just talking about what we typically see.
Exactly. Yeah. So everything's going to boilerplate off that. So that's why it makes more sense to also insure your house the right way. Because people would tell me all the time, say you have a $200,000 house. Well, 75% of the personal property is $150,000. I just say 75% because you're somewhere between 70 and 80%, right?
Yeah.
And so they're like, well, I don't have $150,000 of personal property. You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
You probably do.
For replacement costs.
Yeah, for replacement costs, right? So a TV, right? Like this TV right here, if it bought today's
nice TV.
Exactly. It bought today's money is, that's a nice one. Let's say $1,000, $1,200, right?
Right.
Well, in 10 years, that TV is going to be relatively obsolete. So that's where replacement cost is going to be there,
right?
Because we're going to buy you the new version of what you currently have.
So one thing I've seen when I've been reading like through my policy and some other policies recently, just in the storm aftermath, is there's certain items that are personal property
sublimits,
which will have limits. So it's like for us, like electronics would be $2,500, so much per item, but a total aggregate could even be the same for like original stock certificates, for precious metals, like things like that. Like all that's kind of built in.
Jewelry,
memorabilia, jewelry.
I think
those
the
kind
easy
of
one to
things.
talk about is your wife's engagement ring.
Yeah.
Or if jewelry.
I hope you spend money on your wife's engagement ring.
It doesn't guarantee. Let
me say this for everyone, financial planning perspective. It does not guarantee a good marriage to spend more money on a ring.
Correct. Yeah.
Let me just clarify that. So
I've got one.
So go back to we typically try
pay
to make
cash for that ring.
Yeah, don't finance your love.
Please don't
Come
finance
on.
that. Pay cash for
That's
that.
That's terrible.
Save some money.
Yeah. So we always make an office reference in these episodes. So for me, the office reference on that would be Michael Scott when he buys an engagement ring for Holly Flax, the HR person, right?
Yeah.
He does, I think, 3 years salary.
It's supposed to be 3 years salary, right?
I was like, what?
No.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
So anyway, so personal property that's like higher value.
Yeah, so higher value personal property. So you'll see things put as, you'll hear references put on a schedule.
Okay.
And so what that means is you'll be able to break down the value of each item.
Okay. So you list them out specifically.
Exactly. You list out. So, white gold engagement ring, 14 karat gold, 1 carat on, princess cut, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right. So
what quality are you talking about? Like,
I mean, sure.
IJ7 or like that kind of stuff.
SI2. I don't know. Sure.
Man, you know these things. Okay.
Hey, I've bought 2 so far. Not engagement rings. I bought my wife a 15.
That's so bad to say. Does Bree know this?
I bought my wife a 15-year anniversary.
It
was actually for
that was
her
last
birthday.
year then.
Either way.
16 years. Yeah.
So those things are going to have higher values. Everything has sublimits inside of that because you got to think. Say you have say you were Michael Scott and you bought your wife a $100,000 ring and you live in a $250,000 house and your personal property coverage is $200,000 or $175,000.
I would say you're probably committing tax fraud if you're in that situation.
Well, yeah, but let's just say you're something's going on, right? But if those higher value items will take so much out of that, so they have to limit it, right?
Right. Yeah.
You want to insure it the right way. We have to prove that you own it, and there's all sorts of things. So some kind of policy that has those on a schedule, some kind of jewelry policy or things like that. I don't necessarily like them as riders on their homeowner's insurance, just because if you put something on a homeowner's policy, this is important. Everything is subject to your deductible. I don't care what it is. Everything is subject to your deductible. If you want them to repair or replace something of yours, you got to take your deductible out first.
So for those, sorry, keep going, and then I've got a question.
So I was going to say, so if you have it on a homeowner's policy as a rider, and you have a $1,500 ring and a $1,000 deductible, well, they're going to give you $500, right? Put it on its own policy that has what we call open perils, which means for those who don't have insurance speak, open perils peril is the things that can befall your home that actually create the claim.
Something that causes a loss.
Exactly, something that causes the loss.
Does that include theft?
Yes, but there has to be evidence of theft inside, because technically mysterious disappearance isn't there, so it's got to be vandalism. And so a jewelry policy on its own or a high value items policy on its own will have open perils. So if something were to happen to it, I don't care if you drop it off the edge of a cruise ship, right? Hey, I lost my ring. They can replace it for you. And
Titanic reference right there.
Mysterious disappearance is covered, right? You lose it in the sand on your honeymoon. The diamond, what we see a lot of is the diamond fell out or something like that. That's things that can be insured in open perils. And the answer is yes. And the deductible, you can have a $0 deductible even on it. Yeah. And so that's taken care of. Those are just better ways to insure those higher value items. But yes, like electronics, high value items, collectibles, all those things are going to have different supplements inside of it. So talk to your agent. If it's worth you worrying about it, then it's worth you looking at a policy for that because they're super inexpensive.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to insure, it's usually $75 a year for a policy like that.
Okay. I know when we
75 to 100.
When Haley and I first got engaged, when I bought the ring, the jeweler, which I always recommend, like get a good jeweler relationship. That's a good thing.
Great thing.
But the jeweler we worked with.
If you're listening to this podcast, I'm hoping you have high hopes for yourself. So get yourself.
We want to lift everyone up.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Local businesses build relationships.
Yeah, not
and
jewelers and that kind of stuff. So, so that ring actually he included with it was like 1 year of a policy through Jewelers Mutual.
Yeah.
And then when we bought the wedding bands, and then I bought some other jewelry, like he's always done that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In those situations, I think it was like for 3 different articles of jewelry that totaled $15,000 in appraised value. It's cost me like $180.
It's just not.
It was a joke.
Again, we go back to spending pennies to buy dollars.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So anything else you want to add on that before I jump to something else?
No, I just think know your policy, know your agent, build a relationship there. If you ever have any questions, something actually you did hit on earlier with knowing what that policy is and being educated, guys, your insurance agent wants to know who you are. And I don't.
Not just because they want to sell you something else. It's because they want to make sure you're taken care of.
If somebody sends me an email that says, hey, Tim, I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you and just go over what my policy is, there's no agent in the world that should be saying no to that. Right. And if they can't do it, then somebody on their team is fine. Hopefully they're teaching their team the right way to have those same conversations.
Yeah.
Maybe you find a gap that you didn't know about. So where they are going to look and dig for things to make sure that you're properly protected, don't think about go in with the idea that maybe there's some gaps or concerns, and maybe you'll come out and realize that maybe you had some gaps the other direction, and then walk out saving you money. Very often it happens. We love to meet our customers. Come and have a cup of coffee.
Yeah.
We love that.
And I think that's really important to go back to is just like the annual check-in or check-up is like
once every other year.
Right.
If it, homeowners insurance, things like that's fine too, but just make sure you're doing it.
Yeah. Whenever you have a life change, right? And that's where like on the financial, like comprehensive plan side for us, we try to reach out to all of our customers or clients, at least annually. Some of them we talk to 3-4 times a year based on complexity, based on need, those kind of things. But for every time we schedule like a strategy call or strategy session, if it's not just a one-off conversation, if it's like we're scheduling a time to do this, we're going to send out, hey, here's the record of the financial information we have on file. Tell us ahead of time what's different and what's new so that I can be informed and educated to be prepared for that conversation of, hey, we need to change this, change that, those kind of things.
Yeah.
Going back to the coverages, I want to talk about 2 other coverages.
Okay.
One of them is just general liability and umbrella, right? And how that relates with like your auto home.
Sure.
Then I want to talk about debris removal because that's a big topic today.
Okay.
So let's do liability and umbrella first, and then we'll round it out with the fun topic.
Yeah. Yeah. So liability, again, going back to that, liability is what I tell my customers, the 2 most important things that we talk about is liability insurance and life insurance. Those are the 2 things that can change.
So important.
That can change your life, affect everybody in your life negatively. We've talked about, we're both dads, we both provide for our families, and if something were to happen in giving me a bill the rest of my life or taking equity out of my home or different places that I have cash can completely change what your life is, especially if you have a big oops moment, right? So umbrella policies are blanket liability coverages, right? So you have to have certain limits in order to have them. So you have to have at least $100,000 of liability on your home. I suggest much higher.
Yep.
For instance, with my company, it's like, I'll say with most companies, it's between $25 to $50 a year to increase your liability limit from $100,000 to $1 million on your homeowner's policy. It is it's pennies, guys.
Yeah,
it's pennies to buy.
And that's just on your homeowners. It's not even an umbrella.
Exactly. It's not even the umbrella. Yeah. And what the umbrella does is it is legitimately everything that you do.
Yeah.
So what I do,
It's literally covers.
Yeah.
That's why it's called umbrella.
When I draw the picture for my customers to explain what it is I draw a picture of their car and I draw a picture of a house and I write underneath, this is what the limits are: 25, 50, or 250, 500, 100.
You use crayons for that?
No, I use a whiteboard. I'm a little bit better.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, crayons would be. Maybe I'll get a chalkboard so I can hear the squeak. Yeah. But so in our state, 25.
Please don't.
Yeah, 25. Sorry, 250, 550 is the actual needed limit in order to be able to purchase an umbrella based upon the Department of Insurance.
Gotcha.
Obviously, if you're paying 250, 500, it pennies to increase from 50 to 100 or 50 to 500. Or 100 to 250. It's just super inexpensive.
Yeah.
Get as much property damage as you can. But so the umbrella, again, I draw those pictures and I literally draw an umbrella over top of it. Mm-hmm. And so what that is, it's $1 million increments. So
I've heard of 500,000 increments. Do y'all do that, or is it just?
I haven't. If you're doing, there might be companies that do.
I think if you're doing it, just do the million.
Exactly.
Is my philosophy.
Well,
like have your base coverages and then add.
Exactly.
So, anyway, so $1 million increments.
$1 million increments anywhere from 1 million up to 10 million.
Okay.
And that's literally what it is. If you get sued, and so here's the good part about an umbrella is that it comes with legal protection. This is very not as well known. It comes with legal protection at no limit. Most companies.
Did not know that. I thought it was baked into your actual limit.
It's not baked in.
Interesting. So the coverage amount.
Oh, sorry about that, Josh.
I
just gave that an old punch.
There you go. So the coverage amount would be like how much they would pay out, like if you have a judgment against you.
Correct.
But the legal defense
there is no
for
limit
that.
To it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought the legal fees were baked into that.
Nope. Look it up.
That's good to know.
Yeah. So
I don't know. I'm not going to look it up because you're telling me.
Well, so you have that's
perfect.
what your litigation costs, your lawyer fees, and all your court costs. All of those things are outside of the limit of liability.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
That's just us researching to get to that limit of liability. Right? What can we do?
Okay.
And so if you supersede those limits, right, you go up over your 250, 500 and that pays out, but then you're getting sued by someone, then your company will step in front and be like, whoa.
Yeah.
And they're going to come to your backing.
Gotcha.
And so with those scenarios, there is no limit of liability on the amount on those costs. There's just limit of liability of what will pay out when it comes to the actual damages. Okay. And so that's where you can protect. Think about the money you have liquid in your cash checking and savings. Think about the equity that you have in your home.
Yeah.
Think
brokerage
about
accounts.
Anything that a judgment can be taken out of, right?
Yeah.
Now in our state they can't come after unearned income, right? They can't garnish your wages.
Right.
It doesn't mean they can't send you a bill, right, in my opinion. So from there, just properly protected, making sure if you're worth $1 million, there's a reason you need to pay to protect that $1 million. Like everybody thinks, well, hey, I have the value, right? But if you don't insure the value, then tomorrow you can be worth nothing.
Right. And that's where like my general rule of thumb for clients whenever they ask about umbrella is when your net worth is a net worth. So like that includes the equity of everything minus debt. When you're approaching $1 million, get $1 million umbrella policy. And I've had some where they have more complexity in terms of business operations. They get above $500,000. That's where I'm like, let's go ahead and like look at that.
Even renters. I mean, if you're starting to build, just money, right? You might might not own a piece of property, but you might have cash in the bank that you want to protect. Yeah. That's important. That's still important too. What I'd say is I would strip it down to as you start to accumulate assets. Right. Those are things that you need to make sure that you're protecting. Like especially if you're a young married couple, have a conversation around that. If you have kids, right, and now your kids are starting to have friends, and those friends are starting to come over, every one of those that's a little liability issue running around every time they're not yours. So just think about it,
right,
and protecting it the right way.
Good, I love that.
Yeah.
So let's round it out.
Debris removal.
Yeah, we're going to talk about debris removal because I'm highly keyed up about this topic right now. Yeah. And then we're going to round it out with key takeaways from Josh. We're going to put him on the spot there.
Oh, I love that.
And we'll go from there. So debris removal. What is debris removal? Specifically in context of
trees.
trees and storm cleanup and those kind of things.
So that's usually it's written. That's usually a number that's in your policy. Right. So for most of it is because these tree companies and roof companies, they're all going to have emergency rates at at least what we're learning, right? So again, going back to all the way to the beginning, Hurricane Helene came through. We're all learning a lot, right? Yeah. They redid the 500 and 1,000 year flood maps because of this thing that came around.
Yeah, which isn't this like within the past 6 years, 7 years? I'll say past 10 years. We've had how many 1,000-year floods or 1,000-year events? I'm
not sure. I haven't. I mean, this has been this. I've never seen anything like this.
Yeah. Well, in 2015, we had the hurricane that came through and destroyed all of Columbia, South Carolina, destroyed our wedding venue before we got married.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah. I think that was Matthew maybe. Yeah. But anyway.
I think I didn't have, I wasn't really fully, I didn't have a whole lot going on in that one. So, but this hit our area.
Right.
Right. And so we're all learning a lot about this right now. So if you look into your policy to start with just removing trees off of things, a big piece is, your insurance company will pay a reasonable expense because we can't ever guess what that expense is going to be. And if you boilerplate that and it's huge, like I've seen some huge tree bills. Yeah. But it's a reasonable expense to get the tree off of a structure.
Off of covered property.
Off of covered property.
Which would be a dwelling or separate structure.
If it's blocking your way in, so if it's across the driveway, if it's on top of your fence, if it's on top of a shed, if it's on top of a pool, if it's on top of a deck, it's got to be on top of something. Gotcha. If you had a tree just fall in your yard and it just lands in the middle of other trees or in grass,
thank the Lord.
Sorry, there's no coverage for that because we don't. Your insurance company doesn't insure the structure or doesn't insure the land; they insure the structures.
Yeah, but if that did happen, say a prayer and thank God.
Yes,
because you just had it very easy compared to everybody else.
Exactly, and I've seen a lot of destruction, and but when it comes down to it, it's a reasonable amount because that's going to be the most expensive part, right? Yeah. Cranes, all these kind of things are going to drop it. Yeah. And then most policies pay $500 or $1,000 per claim to remove the debris and take it with them.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of companies that are charging more than that.
Are they not charging more than that because they know that's the limit?
I would guess so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think it's
good business.
It's on their part. It is. I see that's what they say they're charging for it. So however they break it down, as long as it's reasonable, right? Then we just has to be justifications.
Right.
But yeah, like that's a much different number.
So thinking about that, there's the two different separate pieces of it. You have the I'm going to use my terms or my words. You correct me if this is wrong.
Sure.
So you have the quote chop and drop, which is I'm cutting the trees off of covered property, so it's no longer impacting covered property. That's one side. And then you have debris removal.
Correct.
So the chop and drop is I have a tree on my house. I need to get the tree off my house because, like you mentioned earlier, the adjuster is going to come out. If the tree's still there, they can't actually properly adjust the property for value and repairs. But also, as a homeowner policy owner, like I have a homeowner's policy, I have an obligation per the terms of my policy to prevent further damage to my covered property.
Yeah, correct. So, like you need
you have to get that off. You have to tarp the roof.
We call it mitigation.
You have to mitigate the risk of further damage.
Exactly.
Or else, if you don't do that, you could actually have an issue with
if you've got mold starting to grow, and hopefully your insurance company has a heart, and they're hopefully getting their triaging.
Insurance companies have hearts.
Yeah. Well,
the people in them do. That's the reality.
Yeah. Get yourself a good agent.
Right. Exactly.
So, yes, and. That's correct. It's mitigation, right? So the chop and drop is the most expensive part.
Right.
And that's going to be the part where the crane's going to be involved if you have to have a crane. Yes, we had to have lots of cranes, as Patrick has seen.
Yeah.
And so all those things are
requires
pulling off.
skill and equipment and time.
Exactly.
Right?
And as long as it's proven, it's okay. So what kind of rule of thumb that I have for tree companies is, hey, charge a reasonable amount.
Yeah.
Go and you are going to have to prove the amount that you're charging.
Yeah.
And so the insurance company's going to want to know how many men were out there, how long they were out there for, how much you're charging per hour per man, how much you're charging for the crane. Break it all down and make it easy to prove, so that way there's no argument there.
Right.
Because adjusters can adjust towards things and fix things. It's literally in their name, and so you kind of run through that.
Yeah. So one final question I have on that.
Ask them all.
And again, obviously not objectively focused here.
Sure.
I'm a little bit biased in terms of the situation. Because this is our third time having trees on our house in
you've had
6 years of owning the house.
Yeah, chop them down.
This is the worst one. But so thinking about the actual the breakdown of the cost, and we've talked about how you'd get like an initial claim and supplements, those kind of things. For the debris removal piece in this case, let's say you have a bill from the tree company. Compare with everybody else, it seems very reasonable to like the layperson. And your adjuster says, "Hey, like we have these limits, we're not going to pay."
Yep.
It's like, what do you do as a consumer to advocate for yourself? Like, how do you advocate for yourself properly in a professional, calm manner to make sure you can like really get the best benefit for what you're paying for?
Yeah,
overall?
I mean, like I said, especially with tree companies and things like that, have your proof, right? So, what everyone needs to realize on the very upfront is that we're there to do the best we can. We're not there to project manage the issue.
Yeah,
we're there to finance the issue. So we want to fix it. We want to set it back to the right before. So think about there are no upgrades. We're not upgrading anything. It's like if you had carpet, you're getting the same grade carpet. The job is to replace.
Indemnification is to bring it back to the same level it was
exactly.
before.
Great usage. So, but realize everything's going to take time, right? And nobody's perfect necessarily on their first estimate. So, but realize that you're in the middle of being inconvenienced. That's where I was going to go. That little piece you can cut. That was weird.
No, we're going to leave that one out. That's actually going to be the short for social media.
But the where was I going now? So
we're talking about it's going to take time. Be patient.
So, inconvenienced, right? So when you have a claim, you're in the middle of being inconvenienced.
Yeah.
We get that. And there's going to be frustrations along the way. But like I tell people, and you probably tell your kids when they're growing up and things like that, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar.
Right.
Be nice. Calm down. Take a breath. Your agent is there to help.
Yeah.
If you need help. And there's been plenty of times where people have come in panicked because they see this entire thing and they just don't know where to start. Take a breath. Just first things first, take a deep breath. And then let's just think through the first step at a time, right? We've already talked about mitigation. Get the tree off your roof. Talk to your insurance agent. Hey, they said they were going to charge this. Does this sound okay? Yeah, that should sound okay. Just make sure they prove it, right? Just take a breath and take a step at a time. It's okay if things don't equal up right away. If you have a good agent, they're going to fight with you for it. So like in other instances when, hey, we're going to pay this, we're not going to pay this. Okay, well, prove that. This is why I think you should pay this. Right, so you now get to prove to me why it's not okay to pay the full replacement or the full charge. Right, prove that to me in your estimate, and then because I have all of these estimates that say that I'm right, and that or whatever that is, right, and also going back to they can only adjust what they can see, right, and so things should equal up in the end.
So this is kind of a bogey question I'm going to throw out there based on what you just said. Who carries the obligation in that scenario to provide the body of proof? Like in a court of law, and this is not a legal thing, but like in a court of law, it's like the prosecution has to bring undeniable evidence, like plausible deniability. Yeah. Like who has the burden of proof to say?
I mean, it's going to be, again, goes back to not being a project manager, right? So you're
because ultimately, I want to pinpoint that too, is like the homeowner in the claim process is the project manager for their
correct.
claim.
It is their home. You got to think we had, how many thousands of claims in the upstate. Agents are not adjusters. They don't have claim. They don't have claim decision making ability. Everything has to go to the adjuster. Right. So the adjuster is going to have his system is going to tell him what his bases are, and then he's going to go through and he can prove it up or he can prove it down, but depending on what it is. But he says it's going to be X.
Right.
But it's actually going to cost you Y based upon the estimate that you've seen and. It's just, let's say, trees off of a house, right? His estimate, I'll pay X amount of dollars for the trees off the roof. But again, you've got Y and you've had the work done. And like, hey, but this is what everything will pay. So bring some kind of proof that says, this is why I suggest more, but be nice about it. Don't go and yell at him about it. Say, hey, this is where I've seen this. So based upon the research that I've done, X, Y, and Z have shown this. And especially if they say, well, I've got all this experience, adjusters probably do, but also live on the fact that this is the biggest storm that we've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
They probably haven't seen something like this.
Right.
So give them a chance to catch up a little bit and prove it to them.
Yeah.
And hopefully it can be a collaborative experience, not a combative experience.
Right. And if you have like overall like a rough experience or bad experience from your perspective.
Have I had one?
No. Saying like if you're a consumer, you're a homeowner, you're a vehicle owner, and you have like a really just really emotional, like difficult experience.
Sure.
What do you do in like moving forward? Like if you have a big claim, things like that, expect rates to maybe go up a little bit. How do you handle that like the next step or the next few years?
I just think I think you look back to with anything else, go back and see what happened, and just know that you every now and then you might have a bad adjuster. Go back and research who your local agent is. Right? Did they give you support? How did they support you? Yeah. Did they give you good advice? Did they give you bad advice? And that can be where you start. Start with the person who's selling them to you, because then they're probably like, if they go back and say, I practice with extreme ownership, which we already we've talked about many times.
Way to go, Jocko.
Of like, right, like if something happens inside of our company, it could be the adjuster's fault, but that's on me.
Right.
Right. And so I'm going to go back and fight with the adjuster and say, hey, we need to fix this. We need to fix it now.
Right.
Did your agent do that for you? Or is he just saying, well, that's on your adjuster. You got to go to him to get that.
Right.
Right. Now, the nicer you are to your agent in the process, the more that they're going to help.
Right.
If you're a jerk to your agent, then your agent's going to say, I don't have any decision-making ability.
Yeah.
Right.
I've got 45 other people I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
In a
So
worse
just
situation.
be nice.
Let's work together.
Now, luckily, we've got really good customers, and I've got really good processes, and we've got a really, really good team.
Great company behind you.
Yeah. So we've had a lot of good things, and when things go bad, like we have had customers yell at us, and that's fine. We just calm them down, tell them to breathe, and we're right back in it. Yeah. And so we're great. But just know that things do take time with that. And if you go back to an agent, your agent didn't help you at all, and you felt like he didn't help you, have a conversation with them about it. And if
have
they're
an
not
adult
willing,
conversation.
Exactly.
Right.
Don't yell and scream, but if they're not willing to admit that maybe they dropped the ball or that they could have done better, then maybe at that point, go look and see if there are greener pastures. Because I will tell you, having an insurance agent that's local for many, many, many years, instead of having the guy that you just bought coverage from every 6 months, they will have your back because they see your name and they know your name, not because you've been with it, not because you pay a ton of premiums, but because you get to know people, right? Get the local loyalty back, and you probably have a good experience. Just interview your agent. Yeah.
Perfect.
You can choose a new one if you need to.
Awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, let's turn to Josh real quick. What are your top 2 takeaways?
Top 2, man. I had more than that. You guys talked about a lot.
I mean, you can give us more, but
I'll give you more.
Yeah.
So we talked about what is P&C insurance. That's important to know. We talked about different types of auto coverage. One great takeaway was you get what you pay for. Whether that's in a podcast studio.
That might be the
I'm happy you heard that one.
Yeah, podcast studio number 1, right?
Podcast studio.
Yeah.
If you need a podcast, hit me up, Josh Clark.
Yeah.
And I'm at Pronk Studios here.
Yeah.
You get what you pay for with insurance. Then we talked about when do I know when to file a claim. Talk to your insurance agent. And your homeowner's insurance policy is a catastrophic plan, not a maintenance plan.
Hey, now that
Dude,
I like
terms.
that.
Yeah.
That is big.
Hey, you
That's
said
right.
it.
Yeah,
You said
I just like that you caught it.
The maintenance needs to be built into your budget.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
And emergency fund for larger maintenance items.
Right.
Yes, pennies to buy dollars.
Yeah.
Right. And then that was my next one.
I ruined it.
Buying insurance coverage is like paying pennies for dollars.
There you go.
Yeah.
And
we didn't even talk about life insurance. That's a whole nother conversation we need to have.
Yeah, that's another big conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And be nice to your insurance agent and be an adult.
Yeah. I think that works in
These
life.
are the theses, right?
I think that works in life. Like be
you
nice.
get what you pay for, be nice and be an adult.
Yeah. That's just words to live by. And just treat go back to the golden rule, right? Treat people how you want to be treated.
Yeah.
And so if you want to be a jerk to everybody, then just expect that they're going to be a jerk back. Like I tell my kids, hey, if one of you gets punched and the other one punches back, well, you kind of deserved it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's an important thing is like treat everyone like you like to be treated, how you expect to be treated, but also understand like we all have bad days.
Yeah.
Like there's going to be moments like especially when we're talking about insurance, it's typically an emotional. The point of insurance is to recover from loss. There's some kind of loss involved. That's always emotional when it's financial or otherwise. But I've had fun. This has been a great conversation.
It's been great. I appreciate it. I think it's brought a lot to the surface. And kind of to go back there is like I think if your insurance agent's job is to be the best part of your worst day. And so and that's the burden that they carry.
There's the
every day.
quote.
So yeah, put that one in there.
That'll be in the caption.
But no, it's been a blast. I honestly, the time flies by. I feel like I
we
feel like I rambled
two,
a lot.
But we did one, and it's just like
I feel like
connected.
I rambled a whole lot. And there's gonna be a whole lot of editing on this. I'm gonna leave me like I'm never having that guy back again. But
we're gonna do this again. We're
I'm
definitely
down.
doing
I had a
this
great
again.
time. Thanks for having me.
Well, just to wrap up, thank you for everybody that has watched up until this point. We know it's been a longer episode, but it's been super, super fun to have this conversation. Please give us feedback, like, share, follow, subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all these places. We'll definitely be posting this with some clips on social media as well. We just want to be a resource. We want to be helpful. We want to bring on more guests, bring on more competency experts,
there you go.
Professionals, all those kind of things. So if you have tips or have questions as well for Tim, we'll get you connected with Tim, but also just in general about finance or how to manage money, how to do life well. We want to be that resource. So thanks for your time, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey, thanks.
Discussions in this show are for entertainment and educational purposes only and should not be construed as specific recommendations or investment advice. Always consult with your investment professional before making important investment decisions. Securities offered through registered representatives of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer and member of FINRA and SIPC. Advisory services through Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and neither SmartPro Financial nor Bridgeway Wealth are affiliated.